When you're multi-hooping in the Banana software, the default is to add some registration marks so that when you hoop up, you can align your second hooping with your first hooping. So you can see here the default registration marks, and these will stitch on the fabric at the end of the first embroidery, the first hooping. And if we go down to the second hooping, there are two green crosses which will you stitch before the embroidery. So you stitch those two green crosses onto your stabilizer and then align your first hooping crosses with the second hooping crosses on the stabilizer, and then hoop your fabric. Usually you use a sticky back stabilizer and just align your fabric and lay it on and stick it down. The problem with this is that sometimes these pull out, and also they're quite a distance apart, and you can still twist the rest of the fabric when you're doing that. So if you want a more accurate registration process, the best way is to digitize your own lines. Now, what you need to do is organize your multi-hooping first, and then you can, I'll just close that hooping sequence. The hooping sequence, by the way, is a docker, so you can dock it. Oops, there we go. And you can bring it out, and I just brought it out so that you can see clearly. But I'm just going to close that for the moment and go back to the embroidery area. So I need to click somewhere on the toolbox so that I can go back to the embroidery area. And here's my design with the two hoops showing for the multi-hooping. Now, where the hoops cross, you can digitize a line that you can line up, which is more accurate. So I usually get an open object and a single outline, and I set it up beforehand by changing the stitch length to 4, at least 4, so that it's easy to unpick, because it will sew on the fabric at the end of the first embroidery. It doesn't matter about the second lot because they'll be on the stabilizer, but we want to be able to remove the first lot from the embroidery. So we'll go OK, and we'll digitize that line. So I'm going to start here and come down here and enter. Now if I go to, I'll need a second copy for the second hooping. So I'm going to select that, and the last thing that I digitized was that, so it selects automatically, and I'm going to right click on it and duplicate. So we've got a duplicate sitting right on top of the original. Now when I go to multi-hooping and I open up the preview hoopings, we can see that my line is here, but both lines are here. There's no matching line here in the second hooping. What you need to do to make sure it goes with the second hooping is go back to the embroidery area and select that second line. Now unfortunately they're both the same color as the last object because that's the way the design's set up. So what I need to do is select them one at a time and give them a different color that's not used in the design. So if you haven't got any up and down arrows here, usually when you open a design or insert a design, it only has the colors that come with the design, and then it's got all these blacks for some reason. But I'm going to add a color, and it's come out grey, so I'll keep adding till I get a nice, there we go, we've got some turquoises. Okay, so I can use this turquoise for one of them, and now you'll see it's separate in the color film. And I'll use the one of the grey for this, for the other one. So I need to select that. So if I go to individual objects and scroll right down to the bottom. There it is there. I'll change the colour of that to grey. Doesn't matter what colours you use, just so long as they're different colours that are not used in the design. Okay, now this second one, I need to group it with something that's going to stitch in the second hooping. So I'll click off so nothing's selected. I'm not in true view, so when I click on something, it will turn pink. So I'm going to click on this part of the leaf because I know that that's definitely going to stitch in the second hooping. It's not in the overlapping area and it's not in the first hooping area. It's in the second hooping area. So I'm going to select that, come down right down to the bottom to the second copy of the registration mark, hold my control key down and select that so both are selected. Right click and group. Now when I go to preview hoopings, so we'll go through to the multi hoopings and we'll preview the hoopings. You can see that my second line is now in the second hoop where I want it. So I can now export these to my machine. Now you can leave these automatic registration marks if you like as additional help to line up. But if you don't want them, you can actually remove them. And to do that, you just, I'll close that for a minute. Come over to your multi-hooping options and deselect the add registration marks on output. Now that only refers to the automatic registration marks. The software doesn't know that your lines are registration marks, so it won't remove those. So you just go OK. Now when I go to preview hoopings, oh, it's still there, but it shouldn't actually export them because I've changed those options. We can check that by saving the design. In order to get separate hoopings, we have to export a machine design. We can either send to the machine and it will do it automatically straight to your machine, whatever method you use. But if you want to save a copy onto your computer, you'll need to go File, Export Machine Files. And I'm just going to save it on the desktop. So, and I'll just leave it as Design 9. I don't care because I'm not going to do this one, but you would give it a name and you would give it a location. So I'm going to save. And it says, do I want to export one file for every hooping? Show me first. I'm going to go yes. And here are my two hoopings. And then I can save or save all and then close. I'm not going to go ahead and save, but if you were doing it, you would save all to get both hoopings, and then you can always send them to your machine later as separate hoopings. But as you can see, I've definitely got my new registration marks, and I haven't got those crosses anymore because I chose not to have them. So it's entirely up to you which way you go. So this little video is just part of the multi-hooping lessons in my course 2 for Benina version 8.1. In that I go into great detail about the whole process of multi-hooping and all your different options. So if you're interested in learning more about multi-hooping, that's an option for you. I'll put the details on how to get that course in the description below. I've also got other courses available there, and the course 1 of version 8.1 is completely finished, and so if you enroll in that, you'll get all the content straight away. If you enroll in the course 2, nearly all the multi-hooping content is up, and I'll be adding more content over the next 6 months. There's a full description on my website.